Greetings, casual citizens. I'm Paul, and I'm back again, joined by my illustrious co-host Haley over Discord.
Why, hello, everyone.
And we're here reviewing Big Little Lies, Season 2, Episode 2, uh, Telltale Hearts. Uh, Before we start, I just want to remind you to like, comment, subscribe. And also, when we get into this, we're going to do some shout outs to some comments. But we're going to start with Haley. What were your thoughts of this episode?
Wow. It was amazing. Action packed. Like this episode delivered.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happened.
And what I liked is the fact that there a lot happened, but it did not feel rushed. Like I feel like they really took time with like every, character and situation. And I mean, I thought every scene was just beautifully done, like from the dialogue between the characters, and just you felt like something in every scene, and I loved it.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was really good too. I agree. The pacing was great. The pacing is always really good with this show. They do a really good job of being, the term I always like to use is deliberate. And
Mhm.
so it's not fast, it's not uneven. It's very steady pace, and it's considered slow, but like they're telling stories with cinematography, sitting on shots, stuff like that. So this episode was also great at doing that. I feel like this show has become like in-law drama and like mother drama because we get Bonnie's mom this episode, and man, there's a lot of drama that's going to be coming out of that too. So now we've got Mary Louise and Bonnie's mom. What was her name? Did we get her name?
Elizabeth.
Okay, Elizabeth. I'm sorry, Bonnie's
Yes.
mom, Elizabeth. um,
Bonnie's mom.
yeah. But anyway, so we get Elizabeth. Now we've got two moms, and they're apparently suspecting things, and man, there's just a lot of drama going on. But overall, it's interesting to start to see all the threads of all these different people's lives kind of start to unravel out of this kind of one event, you know? So
Yeah. It's great.
yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming up. Before we get too much into beat by beat stuff, I wanted to bring up, I wanted to thank everyone listening for listening last episode. We got about 200 views, and that's pretty good for us. And
Thank you.
yeah, oh, actually, we're right at 200 right now. So there you go. So thanks everybody that watched it. And like I said, if you like it, we're going to be doing this every week right after the episode airs. We were a little late today because I had an issue getting the images, so I apologize for that. But I know better next time. But we will do this every week at about 10:15, 10:30 live after the episode airs. So go ahead and, like I said, subscribe and hit that notification if you want to get that. Follow us on social media, Instagram.com/casualnotion, Twitter.com/casualnotion, and Facebook.com/casualnotion. And I actually wanted to address a couple of comments, actually just one comment really, that we got on our episode 1 review. So we had a question last episode about the actress, the wife of Joseph, right? Who had the whole scene that came out of nowhere about she had her boobs done, and
Yes.
and we were like, was that the same actress? According to a comment that we got, it was in fact the same actress who played Tori, which is her name. Also, I didn't remember that. It is the same actress as the first season, so that was quite the transformation. I don't know if that's real. I don't know what's going on there, but that's interesting. I did not realize that was the same person. So
Yeah. I thank you for that comment. I'm glad we got clarification on that because they surgeon did a great job.
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that comes back into play, especially with what happened in this episode. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. We started the episode off with Celeste having an accident, having a car accident, and apparently she took some Ambien and woke up in her car, or at some point got in her car and didn't realize it, and she just doesn't remember anything besides some haziness, and then she has a crash. And
Yeah, I hate it when that happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to
Mhm.
be fair, if you're gonna take an Ambien and do something stupid, I feel like it's probably better than making racist Twitter posts like Roseanne. So that was a step
Yeah,
up
she
there.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, and she also was, like, thinking about, Perry and the lust that she would have with him. Like, I felt like those like, she was missing him. I honestly it's kind of what I felt when, when the scene, the episode first started, So, I feel like she's and shortly, after that, that's when, she was talking to her therapist about how she really does miss him, and, the thought of, dating someone else or being with anyone else is just, preposterous to her. And you know, it's it's not until she starts thinking about, like, you know, their relationship and how, like, abusive he would, how he would get.
Hmm.
And I thought that scene where, where she was talking to the therapist and she had her put Madeline in her position, and I was just like, wow,
Yeah,
that was very,
it
I
was.
felt that.
Oh yeah, it was incredibly powerful, and I think an interesting theme of this episode is kind of the way that, especially I think Mary Louise exemplified it the best. Is it feels like they're kind of leaning into this post Me Too environment and kind of the discussions that have come up around that, around abuse, assault, things like that, because Mary Louise very much takes that stance that you hear a lot of people say in response to allegations that come across somebody. Oh, why didn't you go to the police? Why didn't you do this? Why did you stay with them?
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think that this, what we're exploring with Celeste, and to some extent all the characters in different ways, but Celeste is the most obvious right now, is the way that it's such a complex issue, right? There is this love that she had with it, that she had for him, still has for him. Obviously, he's the father of her children, always will be. And there's just a lot of layers to that and a lot of complexity to that. And she's still continuing to blame herself for a lot of things. It came up time and time again when she was talking to the boys and saying, "Oh, Perry wasn't a bad guy. He was just weak, and we're all weak from time to time." She was talking to Mary Louise, and she said, "Yeah, he beat me, but like I'm not saying like I was great or anything like that." She still is always trying to find these ways to justify to herself that she was partly culpable for what happened to her, or
What happened to Jane?
right. But that's the interesting part, is when she's able to step back and take herself out of the equation, right? And so she puts Madeline in her place, in her memory, or even with Jane, right? She's never had any kind of tendency to victim blame Jane. So when she's able to step back and take herself out of it, there is very much a recognition that, like, oh no, he was doing bad things and he was not good in these ways. But any time that she's involved, she very much has this feeling, this sense that she needs to be partly culpable for that. And that's an interesting dynamic to explore. And is to kind of a pushback to this thing that you always get these people saying, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? It's just, well, it's just not that easy. There's so many layers to it.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, it's definitely, you kind of, you really feel kind of where, Celeste is, trying to come from. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's what was interesting to me too is then we got that flashback to her and Perry having dinner, and that super red flag, which was they're telling about the
Yeah.
family. He's like, "Hey, my brother died when he was 5." And she's saying, "Oh, well, I wasn't close to my dad. I don't have any siblings that I know of. My mom passed away." And he does that creepy thing where he's like, "Oh, so if this would work out, I'd have you all to myself." And
Mhm.
there's that duality of like, yes, he is super creepy. That should have been a super red flag. But at
Yeah,
this,
it's premeditated.
well, yeah, and then like from his perspective, right? Like he was searching for someone. Like this goes to the level of how malevolent he was on this, like that's what he was looking for. He tried to make out all throughout season 1 that he deeply loved her and all this stuff and he wanted it to work out, but that really wasn't what it was. He wanted to possess her. He hunted for someone like that, right? Like he's a predator. He hunted for someone like that, and because he knew that he would be able to take advantage of it. And to see Celeste still blame herself about it, it's rough. But at the same time, it's like, well, her being in that position is kind of how this happened. That's why she still feels that way, and he knew that. That's why he was seeking her out. So
I can kind of see that, but I mean, I think Perry absolutely. I mean, absolutely loved her. Like it, may have, you know, been a factor the fact that, he did feel like, he could have her all to himself, but it just makes me think back to season 1 when they first go to the therapist together and just like the way he talks about, how much he loves her and the thought of her leaving, it definitely I don't know, it's just he she definitely did fall into his perfect, like, trap, I guess.
yeah.
Um, but
Well,
yeah, I
and
I feel bad for her.
well, I do too. And to be fair, again, it goes to the complexity of all these issues because I mean, my immediate reaction is to say, oh, my immediate reaction, like I said, was to be like he was a predator and he was searching for somebody like this and he's exploiting it. And so when you push back and say, oh, I think he really did love her, my gut reaction is to be like, well, if he really did love her, like he wouldn't hit her, he wouldn't beat her, he wouldn't rape someone, right? But at the same time, it is, I guess the show is trying to demonstrate some complexity there because obviously we get the scene with Celeste and her sons, right? So the boys are fighting and she goes to break it up, and one
Yeah.
of them, I guess it was Max, I'm not sure exactly which one. They're twins, I can't tell them apart. And but one of them, she goes to pull him off the other one and he turns around and tells her to fuck off and starts hitting her, and she pushes him, right? Pushes him down and hurts him. And so like I totally believe that she loves her son, right? That she doesn't want to do these things. So but at the same time, it's just it's
And
so
yeah,
frequent
and
with him.
maybe the feeling, of him, like, hitting back or kicking back at her, it's just, brought back that, anger
Yes.
that she would get with, towards Perry. And I think she definitely just kind of fogged over and didn't, obviously didn't realize what she was doing.
Yeah,
But
and I mean, obviously that would be a trigger, right? And she even says, "No,
yeah.
you're not going to be like him." So I have a hard time equating those, but I guess it does go to there's some level of complexity, and maybe you can be abusive and still love someone on some level. I don't know.
Uh,
I don't have a lot of
yeah.
remorse for that, but maybe that's what they're trying to get at. But I think
Mm,
I
no.
well, I mean, this is why I say like I don't know that he ever really loved her, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But I think it is a little more interesting the way they're exploring the way that this affects everyone around it, including Celeste, right? Including the victim. Would she have ever conceived of, pushing her son had these things not happened to her? I mean, it seems unlikely, right?
Yeah, very. Yeah.
And if that was indeed Max, he was the one who was hitting Amabella, which means he was the one that knew about what Perry was doing. So
Mhm.
it's just, and I feel like this episode really explores that in multiple ways because we also get that with Chloe overhears Madeline talking, right? And then now the story was Ziggy, and it's just all about how the things that you do, and we see with Bonnie's daughter, which I totally forget her name too. Bonnie and
Sky.
Nathan. Oh, Sky. Of course it is. But we see it's a great name. If your name is Sky, it's a great name. But we see Sky, she also is, we get images of her seeming to understand that there's something going on with her mom, right? And her mom being in this weird place right now with something that happened and she doesn't know what. So it's just, the show is really going deep into all that, these things that happen in your household and happen in your family, that it spirals out and it affects everyone, you
It
know.
exactly, yeah,
And so I'm interested
yeah.
to see if we get that same thing with Mary Louise and Elizabeth. How much we're going to learn about what happened when these women were kids and with their mothers, their parents, what was going on there and how that shaped them, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I got 2, or 1 other, mom in the equation now. Uh, so it's gonna and, I really I I I think Bonnie's mom or Elizabeth is gonna be I loved how she was definitely speaking some truth at that table,
Yeah.
and, she, you know she's definitely into, these visions that she's having. And obviously, Bonnie, seems to have like a little bit of a struggle with the relationship with her mom. You see, you obviously know she loves her mom very much, but, when she also kind of brings up, about, the fact that she was having a glass of wine at dinner. And,
Hmm.
there was that little, comment of, one is fine, 100 isn't.
Hmm.
And, also when she, wakes up and, has those, it was like a crystal and a couple other things that she laid next to her desk, and she's like, "I'm not gonna have that in my house."
Hmm.
And so, you know, it's gonna be interesting how, because I feel like her mom obviously has figured, she's kinda narrowed it down that something happened that night and you're not telling us, and it's just gonna
Hmm.
be, a matter, you have to tell us,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah.
yeah, she's definitely narrowing it down. I mean, obviously, I don't think she'll be in the next episode because, obviously she's like, I want you to leave.
Oh, really? You don't think she'll be back?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, obviously Bonnie doesn't want her there, and she asked Nathan to ask her to leave. So I don't know if she is great, you know.
Yeah.
She stood her ground and said, "I'm not leaving."
Yeah. Well, I mean, because I guess the impression that I get is that, or maybe this is what I'm hoping for, that they are going to explore this idea of, like I said, how these women were raised by their parents and how that affects them, and then feed that forward into them realizing how they're raising their kids, right? Because we're starting to get some of the drama of, we're starting to get some of the history of what has happened with some of these families. So, we mentioned earlier with Perry, and his brother apparently died, and his mom says it was an accident, right? What does that mean? What actually happened there? How much did that influence Mary Louise, and how much did that influence how she treated Perry? How did that influence Perry? And
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And Mary Louise always, she always refers back to her childhood, I feel like a lot when
yeah,
she's, especially when she's talking to Madeline,
yeah,
she tends to refer back to, certain things that happened to her when she was growing up.
yeah.
And
It
I like that.
it almost makes me wonder if that whole story about her with the friend that was like a bubbly personality or whatever, she didn't trust her. It almost makes me wonder if, like, that was her, if she sees in herself, she sees in Madeline what she used to be, until it was disciplined out of her, maybe, because she talks about her dad a lot, disciplining her and telling her certain ways to be. So I'd be interested to see if she made up this story about that friend like Madeline, if that was really her, and then something happened and that took it out of her.
Ooh, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. It's a
Yeah.
good, yeah, it's a good thought.
Well, and then because I also wanted to tie it too with Elizabeth, we, now we have little nuggets of her history in terms of having some kind of alcoholism problem,
Yep.
and something with these visions and these crystals, which we'll get to later because I have thoughts about that, but. But we start to see these things, and there was also a moment that I thought was really subtle, but it kind of stuck with me, which is when Bonnie and Elizabeth are talking, and Elizabeth says, what did you do this time, right? And that's a very subtle way of being like, hey, did you screw up again, right? So
Yeah, I heard that too, and I was like, "Ooh, I wonder if that's referring to something."
right.
I wonder.
And so getting it just it seems so I think she will be back because it seems interesting to me that they would start to leave all these little nuggets about these characters' history and then to not have her on again. It doesn't seem like something they would do. Maybe they did.
Ah,
I don't know.
that's a good point, that's a good point.
Or maybe
Like
we'll
I
just
said, yeah,
or maybe
I
we'll
hope
just
she
learn
is
about it from
back.
Bonnie. Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope she's back too. Maybe we'll just learn about it from Bonnie. But what did you think about Elizabeth overall? I mean, other than what you said.
No, I mean, I really liked her. Like I said, I really like the fact that she is, very blunt, and I obviously she's definitely figured some things out. So I really liked her, as a character. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I what's interesting about it is I feel like I don't know where they're
What's your
going.
problem with her, Paul? What
Well,
is it?
I just don't know where they're going with all the crystals and the visions stuff. It's it's just it feels very supernatural for a show that is very grounded. It would be one thing if it would be like, well, she, thinks that she's the psychic, she has these visions or whatever, but like she was spot on. Like there's something about somebody drowning, right? And we know that Bonnie has had I mean, that's how the season started. We got her
Yeah.
having some flash of something drowning, right? So it seems to like that was a real vision that she had apparently, and I just don't know where they're going with that, and that concerns me because like I said, it's a show that's been so grounded in reality. To go supernatural, just it feels off-brand for me.
Oh, I mean, it doesn't really bother me. I think that, like I've said, Bonnie is a very, bohemian lifestyle type of person. So the fact that
Hmm.
her mom is bringing her crystals and talking about, visions and,
Hmm.
these dreams she has, it seems pretty well in the realm of what I feel like, her growing up or lifestyle probably was like,
Yeah,
so
I'm not at all surprised that, like I said, I don't have a problem with her being into these healing crystals or whatever that's supposed to be and visions and stuff like that. Like I said, I just have a problem with it at least so far indicating that like it's a real thing. Like it's like I said, it'd be one thing if she's like, "Oh, I have visions and I believe in crystals and all this stuff," but then to be like, "No, she's legit having some kind of vision," or maybe it'll work around it. Maybe it's a memory and that's what she's referring to. I don't know, but it's the whole thing of making it seem like they're actually having visions. It's a little off putting for me, but
I kind of like it. So
okay.
I like
Well, we'll see where it
it.
goes.
Yeah.
The thing I find interesting about Elizabeth is how similar she is to Mary Louise, but in a much more direct way. Like they both make comments that are kind of like meant to dig, but Elizabeth is very much straightforward. Like, no, I'm making this comment outright, and I'm not trying to hide it. Whereas Mary Louise is very passive aggressive about it,
Yeah.
and she's like, oh, you're really bubbly and all that stuff. I don't trust bubbly people, and it's just kind of like, you see it every time with Madeline, where Madeline has this interaction. She's like, "Oh, does it seem normal?" And then all of a sudden, she'll get taken aback by that last little thing that Mary Louise says. Whereas
Yeah.
Elizabeth is just very much straight up, like, "Oh no, this is just how it is." But ultimately, they kind of get to the same place. They're ultimately still poking and prodding and being very
Yeah.
direct. Being very concise with it's almost like a jab, right? But it's Mary Louise tries to conceal it, and then she surprises you with the jab, whereas Elizabeth's just like, no, I'm just throwing haymakers out here. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we definitely got another really weird, not weird, but yeah, no, actually funny, scene of Madeline and Mary Louise this episode. Um,
Yeah.
I Yeah, she obviously has she definitely has something against, against Madeline, still.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know why. Madeline's great.
yeah, but
Well, okay. So
oh,
speaking. Oh, go ahead.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say, I really did like uh, her response whenever she, first or when her and,
Madeline.
Madeline, yeah, saw each other and she said, "Oh, it's a problem short people have."
Oh,
I thought that was like, she's
yeah.
definitely
Madeline's
kinda
coming.
giving it, yeah, giving
Yeah.
it back a little bit. I like that.
Yeah, that was great. I, I mean, so I gotta say, I'm a huge fan of Madeline. I will fully admit that a big part of this totally could be like I love Reese Witherspoon. I had a crush on her since high school. It's not a thing. I'm just
Me
saying.
too.
She's great. I mean, Cruel Intentions, right? Like, and that was seminal for me. So I'm willing to give Madeline a lot of leeway because I love Reese Witherspoon so much. But she does. Mary Louise is just being awful there. So to have Madeline, yeah, get that comeback was I really enjoyed that as well.
Yeah.
But while we're speaking about Madeline, so a big thing happened. Well, actually, two big things. But one was that I think we mentioned it earlier. Chloe overheard her talking about Ziggy's dad and being Perry and all that stuff. But then the other big thing was she was having a discussion with Abigail, and Abigail blurts out that, hey, you were having sex with Joseph, the theater director, and Ed overhears it. And so now Ed is apparently leaving Madeline. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we definitely have to get to, Chloe's talking about, Ziggy and the twins.
Yeah.
But seeing I kind of I saw it right when it happened. Abby's face said it all and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, Ed is right there."
Yeah.
And my heart just kind of dropped and I just was like, "Oh, man, I was not I guess I wasn't expecting it." And
Yeah.
then I loved his response of, what Madeline says that, "We're just talking about college," and he's like, "What's this about fucking a theater director?"
Yeah.
And then I love when he walks out and he's like, "Where are you going?" "Going to get my ears checked."
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, Ed is obviously like, "You didn't tell me about, you know, Celeste and Jane and Perry. I had to find that out because obviously our daughter heard that. And, this going on, what happened last year with the director. And yeah, he's done. It's gonna, oh gosh, it's getting so good.
Yeah. I mean, I hope it works out. Ed
Oh, me too. Me too.
Ed is
Don't
like,
get me wrong.
yeah. I mean, because like I said, I love Madeline, I love Reese Witherspoon, and I think like, yeah. Well, anyway, with Ed, he's like the only guy on the show who is like overall pretty decent. Like Nathan is decent, especially with Bonnie. But every time he's with Ed, he's this weird thing where he just wants to get in a fight with Ed.
Yeah, he, like, is very, kinda egotistic and, but then again, like, asks him to, like, help him with things, but yeah, like, I definitely see what you're saying there. And Ed just, walks away, like, "I'm not
Yeah.
not getting into this." But
Yeah.
now he's definitely into something.
Nathan feels like a guy who was conservative, right? And like very much alpha male jock kind of thing, and he's like still trying to come into his wokeness, and so there every once in a while there are like these bits of it that pop out, and he just wants to get in a fist fight with somebody for some stupid reason. But whereas Ed is on the other hand, where he's just like, yeah, like he always seems like really reasonable, and yeah, I don't know. I just hope it works out because I think it can work out, and because It happened a year ago. And by the way, that Joseph guy, he sucks. Like, don't go back. Don't go to
Yeah,
him. Like,
yeah,
that's not
no,
going to
he's
happen.
yeah.
So,
Ugh.
like, it's like, you know what? Things happen. It is what it is. You guys can work through this. I really hope it works out for him.
Yeah, me too. I hope they make up.
I do too. And
And but I do feel really bad for Ed because he like you said, he's, like, such a great human, and he's obviously very sad right now.
yeah, I
So,
know. It was an interesting
but
choice too. Did you notice that they ended the episode with the song that he sang at the end of last
oh,
season?
yeah. Oh, yeah, I know, and let's as always, the music this episode was
Great.
beautiful.
Yeah. They are really
But
good at the
yeah, that was very interesting, with the music choice. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm I guess I'm not really sure why they did that. It fit with seeing Madeline at the end, but it felt like I don't know. To me, this felt more of a Bonnie and Renata centric episode, or even Celeste. It just felt like Madeline, and that she was not the focus of this episode. Then for it to be the exiting song felt a little weird, but it was a great song and it was a great scene to end with. So I don't have a super problem with it. It just felt like it was supposed to wrap up being like this wasn't because you expect that this is an episode about Madeline, so we're gonna end with a song that Ed sang about Madeline clearly, and it just didn't feel like a Madeline episode. But whatever, it's fine. It was a great song choice, so I'm not gonna complain too much.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Any other thoughts on that?
No, 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 none for me.
All right, so then we'll get to what you mentioned. Chloe tells apparently Ziggy and Max and the other one. I don't remember the other twin's name. About Perry being Ziggy's dad, and that opens up a whole can of worms. What'd you think about that?
Oh my gosh. I mean, again, I wasn't, expecting that to happen this season. So when Mary Louise, like, walks into the kitchen and just blurts that out, at first I was like, "Is Celeste, like, imagining this happening?" And then, like, the scene kept progressing. I'm like, "Oh, wait, no, this is really happening."
Mm-hmm.
And, the scene of, Jane and Ziggy, oh my gosh, like, that was just
Yeah,
so well done and incredible, and oh, it just yeah, I think everyone just I was like, "Okay, now this is something we have to handle." And obviously, you know, even Jane and Celeste now have to address the fact that the boys know.
mm-hmm.
And it seems like there was, like, an agreement between everyone that they weren't going to talk about this until they were older. But you know I think the fact that Jane is like, I'm not, looking at him, and she's like, I cannot lie to this little boy anymore. Like, his life has already been built on a lie, or something that I had to hide. And so it's just so heartfelt.
Yeah, that scene was pretty was it's kind of devastating, and if you really think about it, because it's Ziggy's. You kind of see the death of his childhood there, the death of innocence with that whole thing of he said something about salt, right? And then she has to
Oh,
explain, no, it was assault, right? And just that's not something like a 7-year-old should have to learn about, you know.
yeah,
So
yeah, it was.
and it's not something a woman should have to have a discussion with her 7-year-old son about, right? Like, and so just that whole thing was bad. And then also when he makes that comment about how he's known since August, and she said, well, why didn't you say anything? And he says, well, I just thought you'd lie about it again. And that was rough too, because it was like, well, yeah, from his standpoint, yeah, she's lying to him, and he's always wondered who his dad is. But on the other hand, it's like, man, I mean, when he gets older, I hope he'll realize that, like, what else was she gonna do? you know, there's just that's just not
Yeah.
something you want to tell your 4 or 5-year old son.
Yeah, and it just what I also love what this episode has done is that it's just showing like how much these kids actually know no matter how hard their parents are trying to hide it from them. Like
Hmm.
kids are a lot smarter than we think.
Yeah.
Him saying, I just figured you would lie to me again. Like he knows her tricks and what triggers, her responses. And it's just they're smart. They're smarter than we think.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's always true. Yeah. I was gonna make a comment about how, when I grew up and I was born 8 months and 1 week or whatever after my parents' marriage date, and they were just always like, "Oh yeah, you were born 3 weeks early," and like I just remember being as a kid, be like, "Man, I was like
Mhm.
9.5 pounds when I was born. There's no way I was born 3 weeks early. Like, let's just be honest about this, people." And like, but
Yeah.
they grew up in the Christian conservative South. Like these are the airs you have to put on. Whereas like I'd just be like, I don't know, you guys were clearly in love. You were together till the day you died. There's no reason why. Just let's just all be honest, right? And it's just yeah, there is a tendency to be like to think the kids don't know or don't understand these things, and they definitely do. So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and I like even Elizabeth or Bonnie's mom when she talks about, we're family. That's what we do. We get in each other's business.
yeah.
Like this we this is family.
Truer words have never been spoken. I feel
Yeah.
like if there's anything that family is good at, it's getting in each other's business. So
Yeah, right? Well, and the fact that, Celeste and Jane, when she brought the boys over to, to, like she said, spend time as brothers.
mhm.
That was, that was amazing,
Yeah, and what I found really interesting about that was kind of the juxtaposition of that scene because it was part of that overall montage of
Yeah.
every what happened to everybody else. And it was interesting that like these are the two women who have arguably experienced, the hardest trauma up to this point that we know of up to this point and are dealing with some of the heaviest stuff. And of course, season 1 was mostly about what was happening to them, right? And how all this bad stuff was happening to them. And so it was interesting to get at the end of this episode that juxtaposition of them actually having a nice moment, while everybody else, you see Renata with her daughter and everything that's going on with her
Mhm.
life. And then you see Bonnie and her daughter's suspecting, and all the stuff Bonnie's going through. And then we see Celeste and everything, or not Celeste, Madeline, right?
Mhm.
So now we've got the two characters who experienced all this stuff in the first season, and they're actually maybe getting some semblance of being able to put things back together and going through
Yeah.
the reconciliation process. And now everybody else is their lives are going through all these problems and spiraling out of control. So that is an interesting way they played that, I thought.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that too a little bit, how, how it was showing, everyone else kind of at, a really low point and them to just like, okay, this is what we're doing now. And yeah, I thought that was great.
Yeah, a little bit of them coming to grips with what's happened and being able to move past it, and maybe hopefully foreshadowing for the other characters, right? That they can get through all the stuff that's happened to them.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
So actually, I think just the last couple of things to touch on before we can wrap up here is Renata. So Gordon, I guess now we know why Gordon was drinking and acting weird last episode. He gets arrested for insider trading,
W-
and then
Weasel.
yeah, then Renata finds out that not only did he insider trade, but then when everything started going bad, he then apparently bet their ranch that they have, which I don't know that we've ever seen, but apparently bet that and has basically put all their wealth on the line right now because he wanted a Gulf Stream apparently. So that was a good job, dude. Anyway, and we find out also that Renata apparently grew up poor, and I don't know if we knew that last season, But if we did, it wasn't a big important plot point. But it seems like it's going to be now. We're gonna have to. We're gonna see her deal with some of her insecurities, I guess, about uh, growing up poor, being poor, and stuff like that. So anyway, what did you did that did do you feel like that justified what we saw last episode?
Yes, it definitely kind of brought, brought that to a head, I guess, because at first I was very confused with why we were kind of concentrating on Gordon last episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, Renata she is not happy.
No.
And, yeah, I don't like you said, if they have mentioned it, wasn't as big of a plot point, but you know, she's worked very hard for everything she has, obviously. And the
Yeah.
fact that she was, gonna be on the, cover of this, women's magazine, she has, she works very hard for what she has. And the fact that her husband has, taken that from her,
Yep.
whew, she is not happy.
Yeah. And I like that line she had when she was telling Madeline, "I will," or I think she was telling Joseph, "I will not be rich." And yeah, that was pretty good. And then also when she kicks him out of the car and then she drives off, giving the bird, that was pretty good too.
Yeah, and I like how she gets down the road and she's like, "Damn it, I gotta pick him up. I can't leave him on the side of the road."
Yeah.
But it's like, she believe me, I know women have definitely felt that before where it's just like, I can't deal with this right now."
Yeah, yeah. No, and I don't blame her. Like, because when he made that comment, it's like what a dick. Because he says to her, like, "We're creatures of want, you especially." It's like, dude, how dare you? You're the one who just bet all your stuff because you wanted a plane. You broke the law because you wanted a plane, and you're gonna sit here and tell your wife that, oh, especially her, she's a creature of want. GTFO, dude. Like,
Yeah.
get out of here with that nonsense. Like, don't try to pawn your bullshit off on your wife, you know?
Right.
And there is a, as someone who also grew up not that poor, now I'm not as rich as she is, but like there is a part of it where you're like you're always afraid of that and always afraid of going back to that and you can see her having to start to deal with that. So I don't know how big of a plot point that's going to be this season. Um, but I hope it is because last season Renata was so one dimensional. I felt like in being a villain, being this kind of stereotypical rich
Yeah.
prima donna, and so to get some layers and some complexity of that character is, I think it'd be good for her character. So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then the last thing I would say is Mary Louise saying that she's going to go to the police. I think she's suspecting at least Celeste. I don't know that she suspects anyone else yet, but she kind of started putting everything together in terms of, oh, you found out all this stuff about him having another kid. He apparently abused you. You were going to leave him the next day, and you find out that he, had this other kid just seconds before he died. That seems awfully suspicious. And it's interesting because I said last week that I didn't understand why the police would still be focusing on this, right? Like, okay, even if you think like she maybe pushed him down the stairs, right? And he died because of that. And they were talking, oh, it'd be involuntary manslaughter or whatever. And it was like, well, who cares? Like, he was beating his wife, he raped this woman and had this kid, and it didn't, like, just let everybody go. But at the same time, I feel like this episode we start to see that I guess she actually suspects that they maybe premeditated and murdered him and that they just all were working together. And maybe that's why she's still going after this. But that seems, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah, she's definitely putting things together. She just refuses to believe that, her son, her perfect Perry would do anything wrong. Why, he would never, rape and father another child or, beat Celeste or even slip and fall. She just refuses. Well, and some of it she's right about and some of it she's not. But yeah, she definitely just she's on to something. And I feel like her character is, she's a very strong, female character. She's wanting answers. So
Yeah, I'm interested to see if her and Elizabeth, if they start to kind of compare notes, right? Because Elizabeth obviously knows something's up, and then she had that thing about what did you do this time. So if they get together and they start comparing notes, and how much can they piece together, and what sucks about it
that
is just like nobody really did anything wrong here. Bonnie didn't do anything wrong. Celeste didn't do anything wrong. Jane didn't do anything wrong. And now we have to deal with them like, but now if even if it comes out and then they do tell the truth at this point, well, nobody's going to believe them. But, well, why didn't you just tell us that when it happened? And now it's going to feel like they were trying to hide something, and it's going to look like it was premeditated, and that sucks. you know, I mean, it's interesting drama, it's interesting story, but it sucks for the characters. It sucks for them because they didn't do anything
Yeah,
wrong.
I know. Damn it, Madeline. Why didn't you just tell the truth?
I know. I can't be mad at you though. But anyway, so any other major thoughts? Anything that we missed here?
No, yeah, I thought it was a very good episode. Oh, I mean, only other thing is, I guess Jane's going to be going on a date with this, you know, coworker of hers, so
Yeah.
Corey or whatever. But yeah, we'll see if they come up next episode. And yeah, if Mary Louise goes to the police, what she tells them. And I would, like to see if Elizabeth and Mary Louise ever, find themselves in the same room and piece together this night. Um, so yeah, it's gonna be exciting. So
Yeah, there's definitely a lot coming up. I do want to say, actually, thanks for reminding me about that scene with Corey. It's interesting when that whole idea of a practice date. I was like, what is that? What are you doing? And she kind of responds to it. Jane says like, she's like, I don't want to be hurt your feelings or anything, but like you're kind of weird. And I was like, well, that was kind of harsh. I don't know that I needed that, but at the same time, he is kind of weird. So it's like, okay, I can't be too mad at you, but still, it's just that was I don't know, it's awfully direct. So, and you know what?
yeah,
I still want to know what happened to bartender. What was it, bartender Ben? What was that? Was his name? Ben? I don't remember. Anyway, the bartender from
yeah,
season 1. He just
yeah.
disappeared.
The barista guy, yeah.
Just disappeared. We never see him again. He was fine. He wasn't weird. He wasn't faking Asperger's, allegedly.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. She does say that he's kind of cute, so I don't know. Maybe she's got a little crush on him, but yeah.
I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I don't know. I miss bartender, whatever his name was. But anyway, well, so overall, do you give it a recommend?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Watch it.
Yeah. Obviously, I think it continues to be great. Um, as Haley said at the beginning, the pacing is very good. That continues to be a high point for the show, and the music is great. And we're starting to get a lot more backstory. I think there's interesting things coming up, and so I'm excited to see what happens. So definitely give it a watch. So with that, I think we'll conclude it for this episode. That has been our review of Big Little Lies season 2, episode 2, Telltale Hearts. As always, like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We will be going live every week after the episode airs at about 10:30, hopefully, if I don't have issues with screenshots again. And follow us on social media, twitter.com/casualnotion, instagram.com/casualnotion, and facebook.com/casualnotion. And leave any comments if you had. What do you think? Do you think we're going to see Elizabeth again next season? Or next episode? Not next season. We're not that far yet. You think we're going to see Elizabeth next episode? And are her and Mary Louise going to start comparing notes? And what is that going to mean for everyone else? So leave a comment and let us know. Until next time, I've been Paul.
I've been Haley.
Thank you for joining me. Keep it casual, everyone.